All right, my friends, continuing our series on brake adjustments. Today, we're going to be talking about disc brakes, specifically hydraulic disc brakes. So let's get on topic. Hey, everybody, it's Thomas with Get Out Arizona, and you're watching another great episode of Toolbox Topic. I'm joined once again by my co host, Brandon Van Leuven. Brandon, how the hell are you?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Caught some bad traffic today on the way in, yeah?
This freaking place.
I'm telling you, Phoenix drivers. And it's not really the Phoenix drivers, it's the drivers from Chicago and Wisconsin and freaking Michigan and Ohio that screw it up for the rest of us here. So, no, I'm joking, guys. We're coming to you once again from Check Bicycle Stores of West Phoenix in Goodyear, Arizona, where the cool kids hang out, and me. And like I said, we are continuing our series on brake adjustments. We've talked about V-brakes.
Yes.
We talked about rim brakes, which V-brakes are rim brakes, but kind of the caliper.
Yep. Road calipers.
Yep, road caliper. And today we're going to start talking about disc brakes, but specifically hydraulic. There's mechanical disc brake and there's hydraulic disc brake. Both of them have their nuances, pros and cons. I think both of them, especially when we talk about mechanical disc brakes, depending on, I've seen some really good ones out there that feel as nice as hydraulic if they're adjusted properly.
I'm going back to mechanicals.
Which, yeah, we'll talk about in the next episode. But mechanicals definitely, or I should say hydraulic, have come a long way. And now, we'll mention this, with SRAM, that new hydraulic disc brake they came out with that uses mineral oil instead
they feel pretty damn good.
Brake fluid. Just
I hate to admit it, because I've hated SRAM brakes my whole life since their inception.
But they
now
rock.
These are really, really good feeling brakes.
And those actually probably be the ones I end up upgrading to on Esmeralda as far as that goes, once I get the Chris King hubs and wheel set. So, without further ado, Brandon, take us away. Let's give us an overview and then jump right into it.
Just like mechanical rim brakes, V-brakes, or calipers, people come to us with hydraulic disc brakes for kind of the same three reasons. It's because of lever feel.
Right.
It's because of brake squeal, and it's because the brakes are rubbing.
Right.
So let's get down into how we're going to combat all three of those things. It's going to be a little more complicated now that we have introduction of a hydraulic system that in some cases requires specialized tools. So let me just start by saying a brake bleed will be needed if the brake feels spongy, or if you tip the bike in certain ways and the brakes are non-responsive and you have to pump them up. That requires a brake bleed. There's nothing you can do about that. Today we're going to talk about things that we can do at home, adjustments that we can do, and tips that we can do at home to make our brakes feel a little bit better and work a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I guess we got to transition.
Go to the tight shot.
Yeah, we're getting. All right, and B-roll today is going to be shot once again with the iPhone because it works great. And you can see I remembered my small rig cage. It's going to make it a whole lot easier to hold. So let me get my glasses on so I can actually see. I'm going to hit recording. And Brandis, count us in and give us a thing.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. All right.
So here we go. So the first thing that we can talk about is brake squeal. So it's very important that if you're doing any adjustments or any kind of maintenance at home, that you don't get anything on your pads and rotors. We don't even touch them with our hands during assembly because maybe we got oils on our fingers, things like that. Unfortunately, these systems can be pretty easily contaminated by most things. So if that's the case, what we're going to want to do is remove the wheel, take your pads out, take a look at your pads. They might be glossed over, which is going to cause squealing. They might be, once again, contaminated. So what you can do is grab your pads, if you had brand new pads, or if you had used pads, put a piece of sandpaper on your bench and just kind of rub them like that until you have a brand new surface on that. Then, using some isopropyl alcohol and a very clean, once again, clean paper towel, clean your disc rotor as good as possible and see how that works. Now, a lot of times, pads are very porous. And so a lot of times after a few rides, or maybe the same ride, that same squealing might be coming back. At that time, it's just going to be time for new pads and rotors. You have to start right over again. But that would be where you want to start for a squealing system. Typically, the best thing to do, just keep anything that you can off them, keep them as clean as possible. The next thing is going to be lever feel. So a lot of times, people come in and say, well, one is not, one is not engaging as soon as the other. They're kind of off. Well, there's a couple of ways we can combat that as well. The first way is going to be by putting new pads in there. You'd be surprised how unevenly pads wear in certain instances, the way people ride. So just by putting new pads in can make that lever feel a whole lot better. It could also be that it needs a bleed. You have to take that circumstantially, but typically new pads at 100% life, they feel great right off the bat. So check your pads first. What you can do is you can go in there, take a look at them, and what you want to do is here's your spring. Take a look at the relationship of the amount of meat you have left on your pad to where you are on that spring. We've been doing this so long, we kind of can see where 50% is. We can kind of see where 40% is on that pad. So it takes a little bit of experience, a little bit of history to kind of see where your pad is at. But that's a great way by looking at that spring to know how far along your pads are.
And I'm sure you could show us once we get to the actual.
Yep. Typically what I'll do is when I'm doing a check over, I'll grab my trusty flashlight here and put my spectacles on, and you can just kind of look in there and see where your pads are at. It's kind of a telltale when you're like, hey, yeah, this one's pulling further and then your pads are low. That's a great way, an easy way to fix that lever feel.
How much do new pads cost, Brandon?
Not too bad, like $25.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And as far as installation, how much does Trek charge?
With the pads, we would also charge an additional $10 to put them in because then you have to readjust.
Right.
Now, here's a caveat with new pads. If you've been bleeding your system as the pads are wearing out, you may need a new bleed done because now you have a thicker pad and you have too much hydraulic fluid in the system, and now there may not be enough gap for you to get a proper adjust in. So,
well, good to know.
Yeah, that's that.
And actually, all things being equal, $35 for pads and an adjustment, that's actually not too bad.
Not too bad for how good they're going to feel after you're done. Yeah, absolutely. So the final thing that we're going to do at home is, and this is the most common one, it's like my brake is rubbing. You're riding, you hear that or maybe the whole thing is just and so that comes from a few things.
How is that again?
God damn it. So here's how you're going to start doing this at home. So the first thing we're going to do is do a little bit of an inspection. What I want to do is, coming over to the thing, take a good look, head onto our rotor. Now, the new free hubs are so freaking loud, and I do a lot of this based on what I hear.
Right.
So what I will do is, if you don't have a stand at home, this is going to be difficult, but I will run this thing backwards where the free hub isn't so loud. And the way I do this is I just stick my ear right up into there, and I see where I can hear any kind of rubbing going on. Right. This one's adjusted perfectly, obviously. It's right off the floor.
Brand new bike, yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to do that. When I hear that or a longer what I want to do then is inspect my rotor. And by spinning it, you can see if the rotor's straight or not. Now these rotors, God, they go through shipping. I don't know what kind of hell they go through before they get to the shop. Sometimes they come in the box already with a little bit of a back and forth to them.
Right.
In which case, you can
use look at that tool.
Our rotor bending tool. Now, this is not a very exact science. This is just bending metal. You're going to bend a little bit too far in some instances. Sometimes you'll make it worse. It all depends on the rotor. I just spit. And and actually, the bigger
you guys get a little bit of everything, my friends. This is why you should hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon. You never know what you're going to miss.
I probably just contaminated the rotor.
Right.
But where was I at?
Bending.
So you can bend it back with, this is the proper tool to do it.
Okay.
Sometimes what you can do also is, once again, I will grab, if you don't have that tool, grab a fresh paper towel, and then you can, without touching it, kind of give a little bendy where you need to. What I will do is listen for where that is, and then come back, kind of see where it's at, and then give it an appropriate bendy.
Right.
Once again, takes a little bit of experience, takes a little bit of know-how, takes a little bit of a mechanical touch to know how far to go. Once again, you can make it worse if you go too far. But with the right touch, that goes a long way. Yeah. And once again, these guys are fragile, not only that contamination side, but just you bang up against a rock, you lean them against something, they're going to bend.
And so you'll hear that sound. It's very distinct, and just from my own experience, where it's like, oh, almost feels like there's been tension added to the bike. Yep. And then sure enough, friggin' kind of spin it, and you can hear it just drag across the pad.
Yep, for sure.
So it's not something like, oh, am I going to recognize this sound? It's very distinct.
Yep, absolutely. So provided that your rotor is straight and true, What we can now do is look at our caliper. The caliper may have been banged off of off its alignment, in which case we have two bolts right here. We have a it's going to be either a 5mm, 4mm. It could be a Torx wrench in some instances. In our case here, we have a 5mm. And these guys, well, I'm going to knock this out, and who knows if I'll be able to get this back into such perfect alignment here in this short amount of time. But just by loosening these guys, I can adjust this caliper around. And the way, once again, I do it, first try is what I'm going to do is, I'm going to come around you real quick.
Yep.
My very first try on these things, sometimes you get lucky. This doesn't always work, but sometimes you get lucky. You want to hold on to the brake that you're adjusting and then come back here, because what's going to happen is if you want to take a look at this on a smaller scale, I don't know if it'll do it, but so if I touch the brakes,
yep, you can see it move, guys. Yep, you should be able to have seen that move.
And then you can hopefully tighten this guy up. And that might be a self-adjuster. That would be great. And SLX, that's awesome. Now, once again, working with higher-end components is always easier. If you're dealing with an, unfortunately, a less expensive, less performance component, they're not going to adjust easier. It's just the way it is. So in this case, man, that's awesome. I'm done in most instances. Say that's not the case. Say that it's still rubbing. I can still, once again, grab the caliper, shove my ear down in there, and what I do again, I'm going to come around you again.
Yep.
This is a little more than you need to see. I'm going to grab my face in there, run it backwards, and adjust manually with my hand here where it does not rub anymore, and then tighten it up.
Right.
Say you're having a real bitch of a time getting this done. No matter what you do, it's rubbing, it's starting to piss you off. There's a couple things about that. So the first one, what I will do is, if I'm having issues, is remove the wheel.
I thought you were going to say hit it with a hammer.
You can do that too. I like to throw them in the alley.
Right.
But this is a pad spacing tool. So sometimes what's happened is you've removed the wheel, you've accidentally hit the lever, and now the pads have spaced themselves. They don't return all the way.
Right.
And that's going to make your job really difficult to align it and also to get it to stop rubbing. So a tool like this is the right tool. You could also maybe use a screwdriver if you're very gentle. You don't want to disturb those pads, scratch them up, things like that. But this is the right tool to have. This is a pad spacer. There's a number of different tools like this, but this one is mine.
Jeez.
And so what you'll do is remove the wheel, remove the rotor. You're going to use this guy. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but you're going to use this, just cram it up into the caliper, and then the pads will space out evenly. Now, once again, going back to the amount of hydraulic fluid that's in there, if you've had pads replaced or not replaced and the brake bleeds done, then you may need to either remove or add. It's something they might have to bring to the bike shop at that point in time.
Right.
But doing this, spacing pads, and then realigning it can sometimes make all the difference in how easy your job is to realign that brake.
Cool.
So that's about it.
Really?
That's what you do. And that's how you do that.
That's how you do that. That's how you do it your damn self.
Yep.
Okay, so now a couple questions.
Yep.
Are there any adjustments that anybody can do at the lever like we would do with the V-mount brakes or the road rim brakes, caliper brakes? Or is that going to be something we're going to show in the full video when we talk about brake bleeds and how to do the brake bleed?
Okay, that's a good little cheat. You're right. So I'm glad you brought that up. Most brakes, as you get to a certain level, are going to have what we call a pad reach adjust on them. Some of the higher end Shimano ones, if you want to go back to that one, they will have an external knob that you can adjust, and that as your brakes pads wear out, you can increase the adjustment on that knob to simulate the feel of the other brake or to even them out. It's a little bit of a cheat. I don't mind doing that. That's fine. There's no problem with that. Other ones will have it inside the lever. There'll be a very small Allen wrench that you can see that comes out by the piston when you have the lever here. It'll be on the inside. Maybe we can take some still shots of some of those after this, but that will require like a 2 and 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, and you can dial the piston in at that lever as well. So great point. You can also do some adjustments at the lever.
Okay. So above and beyond this, now we're talking about an actual full-on bleed, you know, which again we'll discuss in another video, guys. We'll actually show you guys how to do that. But that's where we're going to have to go from here. If these adjustments aren't working, then we're talking about
perhaps a bleed. Perhaps we need to get you a new rotor, new pads, things like that. Another thing that will really irritate you that you have no control over is, again, there might be imperfections in either the brake caliper, the caliper adapter, or the mounting points on the frame themselves. There are facing tools that can make those interfaces perfectly smooth. When you're dealing with not a smooth surface, when you tighten them, they're going to shift into these weird spots, and sometimes you have to kind of counteract that by being proactive, and maybe you're adjusting your caliper where it's still rubbing, but when you tighten it, it kind of goes into the spot where it's not rubbing anymore. So again, that's a little bit of patience, a little bit of training, and some experience has to do with that. But these things can thoroughly piss you off. I promise you. There's a number of different things, but yeah, that facing is also a big one that we do hear quite a bit.
Awesome. All right, Brandon, count us out so we can close out.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Well, I mean, for the most part, it's not complex. A little bit of practice, like you said, a little bit of know-how. Right. Knowing what to look for, obviously, is very important.
Little tips there help your job along.
Right. And above and beyond these adjustments now, after we complete the mechanical disc one, we'll start working on, I might as well stay with the whole brake milieu, bleeding the brakes, and how to set everything up after a brake bleed, and the proper way to do it. But these are really simple, and with a couple tools that I would assume aren't that expensive.
No, they're not.
This is something that you can easily do at your house. Now, again, if you're like me and you're just like, screw it, I'm just going to take it down to the bike shop,
That's okay too.
That's okay too. Now, there are things that I do at the house, just because either I don't have time to get down to the bike shop and everything. So it's good to know. Whether you utilize it yourself, it's still good information to have, because you never know when you might also need this information on the trail. If something happens on the trail, it's good to be able to diagnose and get yourself up and running again. So anything else you want to add before we close out, Brandon? Nope, you're good. All right. Guys, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you. So hit the like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon. Helps out the channel, helps out the video immensely. There's going to be some links down below. Trek Bicycle Stores of West Phoenix is the most important link. If you have any questions about today's video, or any other video for that matter, give Brandon or one of his teammates a call. Super good group down here, guys and gals, my friends. I love them to death. What, 7 years now you've been putting up with me? A long time. There's a special place in heaven reserved for this guy. Give them a call. They're more than happy to help out. You can ask your question in the comments. We'll get back to you within a couple days. I promise we answer them all. Social media links, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the devil's work, but it's necessary to get the word out about Get Out Arizona. We have group hikes, group rides, a whole lot of fun. Just come join us. It's great. Show us a little love there. Affiliate links, okay, you know how that one works. Doesn't cost you anything, but it gives us a small commission, which helps out with coffee money, park passes, and gas money. And that's the other trifecta we love so much here at Get Out Arizona. So on that note, my friends, what do we always say? Be kind to yourself and others. Be amazing stewards on that trail. And we have to ask, what are you waiting for?
Get out, Arizona.
Yeah. We'll see you on that next adventure. Everybody take care. We'll catch up with you soon. Brandon, we'll see you next week, man.